His kindness, and His grace. We are living in interesting times, to say the least. And to have a friend like Mayor Criticos, who is a Republican, I'm a Democrat, but we are Americans first. And he has always approached public service with that point of view, as do I, and most of us, Joe, who have the honor and privilege of serving you, the people, should look at it that way. But it's a privilege to be at St. B College. Thank you again to the college for your hospitality and letting us in this beautiful auditorium this morning. And thank all of you that have come. It's a privilege to serve you. And, you know, I've served in several other offices, as you know, or may know. And it is truly an honor to represent you in Washington, to be your voice. That is my job. And I think it's important that, in fact, there's nothing more important than hearing from you. Literally, in a democracy, you're the boss. I'm the servant. You pay me. I'm grateful. and I take it very seriously, because when you elect somebody to office, especially the office called representative, what the mayor said is right. It is to represent you, to be your voice in Washington, D.C., and do everything that I can to make sure that your needs are met. Whether you're a veteran, and I know we have several here, thank you all for your great service to our country. In fact, we have a veteran on our staff, Gershom. Please raise your hand, Gershom. He's a Marine. And a great man. And so we stand here to represent all veterans, of course. And I want to remind you of something that the mayor alluded to as well. When you came in and signed up this morning, I have this yellow band I wear on my wrist every day. And it talks about the golden rule. Who knows what the golden rule is?
Treat others as you would be treated yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Do unto others as you would have done unto you. And I think it's extremely important, particularly now. There is a lot of partisan bickering in our country. There certainly is a political divide. There's no question about it. And we're not all going to agree on every issue that we talk about today the same way. But that's okay. That's an American tradition. We don't have to agree. But what we should do, at a minimum, is show mutual respect. And so I hope that this meeting will be conducted in that fashion. I know that it will. And I want to thank you before we start for doing that, for respecting others. The mayor put it very well. Somebody may ask a question that you don't like. I may get asked a question that I'm not particularly fond of, but that's okay. You know, it's important to respect what anyone's question might be. As he said, they may not like your question, but that's okay too. But let me give you some hope, if I can, about the new Congress. I've been there, I guess, about 7 months now, maybe going on 8 months. Got sworn in January the 3rd. About a month after I got sworn in, one of my new freshman colleagues, or about 55 freshmen, from Louisiana, came up to me and he said, "Charlie, I got an idea about what we might be able to do to kind of set us apart a little bit in this difficult time in our country." And I said, "What's that?" His name's Mike. He said, "I think we ought to have a commitment to civility that our whole freshman class would hopefully sign on to." And I said, "Mike, I think that's a great idea." He goes, "Can you help me, get some Democrat signatures?" I said, "I'd be more than happy to." And so we started about the task of doing so, and out of the 55, I think about 50 signed it. So it's almost unanimous, Republican and Democrat. And we're about evenly divided in our freshman class between Republicans and Democrats. And simply put, what it basically says is, and I'll shut up soon, I promise, because I need to hear from you. But I want to give you hope. And basically says we're not going to agree on everything, but we should respect each other. We should be kind to one another. We should be decent to each other. no matter what it is we're dealing with. And as I say, almost everybody signed it. So there is a significant portion of the members of Congress, your United States Congress, who believe, as you do on many things, that at a minimum we can be decent Americans to each other. And that doesn't get reported on in the news very much. I guess it's not very sexy, but it is important. And so I want you to know that. That's one of the reasons I wear this yellow band every day. So with that, Aaron, I think you have an assistant for picking who shall ask a question or make their point, and
Yes, sir.
well, I look forward to it.
And one last rule I forgot. If you please silence your cell phones before we get started, just to make sure you don't disrupt the conversation. Our first question, the number is 831-8437. You could raise your hand. Right there? Perfect. And before you ask, I'm going to pull the next one so that you can raise your hand and Kendra can find you. 831-8362. 62? Right there? Perfect. Thank you.
And if you could say your name, introduce yourself, and then ask your question, that'd be great. Please.
Hi, I'm Dr. Ashley Carpenter.
Maybe hold the mic closer.
Hi, I'm Dr. Ashley Carpenter, SPC alumni, and a PharmD graduate from the University of Florida, and I'm a local pharmacist at a Walgreens in St. Petersburg. My question is today about net neutrality. Congress gave cable and big phone companies a gift this year by getting rid of privacy rules and preventing them from selling them my personal information without my permission. Now the FCC wants to get rid of net neutrality rules. They want to get rid of the fair playing field and slow down competitor websites unfairly. They say that the regulation with Title II interferes with investing in their infrastructure. But last time I checked, Verizon, Comcast, and AT&T stock prices were going up. So I want to know who is looking out for the consumers instead of these big companies like AT&T, Verizon, and Spectrum. What are you doing to protect Title II, to protect net neutrality?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Doctor. That's a very important question. I will protect the consumer. I have a history of having done so. Some of you may not know, but before I got elected to Congress, I served as your Attorney General. And during the course of that 4 years as your Attorney General, I sued a lot of companies that were, in my opinion at the time, anti-consumer. Again, I work for the people. I don't work for companies. I work for you. And I understand that. A pretty great guy at one time said that ours is a government that is of the people, by the people, and for the people. And I believe that in my heart. And so I've always comported myself, whether it's net neutrality, whether it's ridiculously high property insurance rates, or possibly flood insurance, which is an issue that we're dealing with right now, to fight for the consumer. Because you're the people that are in the 13th Congressional District, or as Attorney General, the people who were throughout the state of Florida. And if I ever thought that one of those corporations was mistreating the consumer improperly, we would take action to stop it. So thank you for raising a very important issue. You can count on me.
62 up next, and then on deck we have 831-8371. You can raise your hand.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for
My
coming.
name is Rosalie Boucher, and I'm the president of the National Alliance on Mental Illness for Pinellas County. A national grassroots organization is the loudest voice for those who are misunderstood and underserved in this country. Thank you for having me today. 1 in 5 individuals in their lifetime will be affected by a mental illness. Right now, Pinellas County owns the title of having the highest suicide rate in the state of Florida. an opioid crisis, and very much underserved in healthcare as far as beds. People, the system is not broken, it is underfunded. The people who enter the healthcare profession do that with a great heart, to help people, to help them get better, to the best of their ability, to work with veterans, to work with citizens, to work with children. Our families in Pinellas County are suffering right now. We run a helpline. We can show you the numbers. You will be astonished. But right now, as part of our program, we offer services free of charge. On Sunday, September the 3rd at 10 a.m., please tune in. We are going to be on television, CW44, with Shelley Sanders, where you will discover the best kept secret in Pinellas County for those who suffer, free of charge. Right now, I'd like to introduce one of our very good members. Her name is Vaughn, and she has an ask.
Thank you, Rosalie. Hello, Congressman. It's good to see you.
Good morning, Bob. Nice to see you.
Good morning, everybody. Well, I moved here to Pinellas County 6 years ago to heal from a severe mental illness. I didn't have health care at the time. I depended on local and state services, including Medicaid, to get through and to get my treatment plan going. We have the BCRA coming back up for discussion. And my ask is, for myself and my friends who depend on these services, what does this look like for Pinellas County? Can you give us the layman's description of what to expect coming up in a few weeks?
Yeah. Thank you, Vaughn, and thank you, everyone. That's funded through Medicaid. You couldn't have asked a more topical, timely question. We have just come through a battle in Washington regarding health care. It's not over, but first part looks good. Very difficult. And what happened is that a bill was proposed that would have taken enormous funding away from exactly what Vaughn was just talking about. In fact, Medicaid directly would have taken a hit of over $700 billion,
Oh my God.
which is remarkable.
Oh.
And I mean, I know what Medicaid does and who it serves. I presume that you do as well, but just to review, Medicaid is a program that was initially established and continues to be health care for the poor, but not just the poor, as Vaughn is living evidence of. The poor and the disabled and others that are sick and need help. And I remember when this issue first came up back in the spring in the Congress, I couldn't believe it. I feel like that we're all children of God. We need to help one another, lift each other up, do all we can to make life better for as many people as possible. It's kind of simple, basic stuff, but it's how my mom and dad raised me and my three sisters. And, when this idea came forward, I was opposed to it immediately. I thought it was cruel. It is cruel. And as others in the Congress have described it, it was merciless. It had no mercy. And what was the reason for it? Well, basically, it was the reason was to be able to create a big tax cut for wealthy people. And so I thought it was shameful. And I remember we were getting ready to vote on that actual bill, Vaughn, and thinking about people like you and others. I just couldn't support it. So a friend of mine, he's been a friend of mine for a long time, his name's Paul. Paul happens to live in New York and Boca Raton. A lot of people do. Not a lot, but some people do. He was raised in Nigeria. And he ended up going to Harvard University and then got an MBA at Harvard University as well. He's done very well for himself. He's a very hardworking guy, and he has a good heart. He called me the morning that we were supposed to vote on that alleged health care bill. I call it the non-health care bill. But he called me that morning at about 8:30, and I'm in my little apartment in Washington. And is anybody home? At any rate, can you hear me now?
Yes.
At any rate, Paul calls me on the phone, and he said, Charlie, aren't you all voting on that healthcare bill today? And I said, yes, we are. Well, at least we're supposed to. And this afternoon. And he said, well, I think I know probably how you feel about it, but how do you feel about it? I said, I don't like it. And he said, well, I figured you probably would not like it because of what we just talked about. And so he said that to me. He goes, what about it bothers you the most? And I said, the thing that bothers me most about it is how we'll treat the poor and the disabled in our society by stripping them away of almost $800 billion in Medicaid coverage. And he said, well, good. He said, I thought that would be the thing that would bother you the most. I want to give you something I think you should say on the floor of the United States House of Representatives before they vote today. I said, okay. I'm always eager to take advice. Need all the help I can get. And he said, it's a quote that I think you should remind the other House members of. And frankly, it's from the Bible. I said, all right, what is it? He said, well, it's out of the book of Matthew. And he said, but it's not a quote of Matthew. And I said, well, who's it a quote of? He said, it's a quote of Christ himself. I said, okay, that's all right. I said, what did he say? And he said, well, it was kind of a similar circumstance, but obviously not exactly. But he was talking to a group of people about how we treat each other and how we treat the least among us. And the quote, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but the quote basically says, how you treat the least of my brothers, you do unto me. Meaning Jesus. So I said, that's pretty powerful stuff, Paul. His name's Paul. Can't make this stuff up. So I took it to heart. You know, I went into my office. This is our chief of staff, by the way. He's a great man and deserves your applause. So I shared that with Austin. And I said, so I think I want to go speak on the floor. He goes, have at it. So about 10:30, I went to the floor of the House, and they call it the well. You get, right down, there's a little podium there. And if you saw President Trump give his speech back in February, like each president does at the beginning of the year, that's the House of Representatives. That's where we were. And the well is right in front of where he had spoken. So what I did, there were many people there. This place is pretty full, and thank you for showing up. But the House is not very populated unless there's a vote coming, to be honest with you. A lot of people are still in their offices, meeting with people from home or what have you, until there's a vote. And then we all scurry over there to get the vote. So it was fairly empty, and they had what they call a manager on the floor now. And the job of the manager is to determine who gets to speak at the well. So I noticed next to the manager, who was speaking himself at the time, was a young lady, one of his assistants. And so I introduced myself. I said, I'm Charlie Crist, I'm from Florida. I would like to speak on this health care bill today. She said, you can. I said, really? I won the election. I got a card that proves it. And so she said, well, you can't because we've already allocated the 1-minute slots for this time period on speaking against the bill. And I said, I worked really hard to get here, and a lot of people back home count on me to represent them and be their representative. And she said, I understand, Congressman, but we just don't have enough time. And I'm a pretty calm guy. I try not to get too high or too low. And so I just went over and I sat in one of the empty seats to kind of cool off, candidly. I was disappointed. And about 3 minutes later, somebody's tapping me on my right shoulder. And I look up and I see this same young lady. And I said, yes. And she said, I have a question for you. She said, Congressman Crist, can you say what you need to say in 30 seconds? I said, absolutely. I can do that. I'm going to have to speak fast. And she said, well, if you can, you're next. You can speak. And I said, great. So I went to I got the microphone, and basically said what I've shared with you. I said, yes, I know that. That's where you give something up. He said, well, more than that, it's where you're supposed to be the best. Really supposed to be good, and good to your fellow man. I said, okay. He said, you might want to throw that in. I said, all right. I said, Paul, how do you know so much about the Bible and all this stuff? He said, I just had a good Catholic upbringing in Nigeria. I said, I didn't realize there was a Catholic copy. He goes, most of this country, Nigeria, is Catholic. I said, okay, that's great. So I got to the microphone and I said, number one, I want to talk about the health care bill. I'm thinking, I gotta be quick. I said, I think it's a bad bill. The way it's going to treat other people, particularly the poor and the disabled and the sick. And I want to give you all a quote, members of Congress that were maybe listening back in their office, because we all have a TV there. And I said, there's a quote from the book of Matthew that I think you should keep in mind before you vote in favor of what this bill will do to people all over this country. And the quote is from Christ. And the quote is basically, what you do to the least of my brothers, you are doing to me. So I said, please think about that. And God bless you. And that was it. I finished it in 30 seconds. About 3 hours later, maybe 1:30, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we're getting close to the time where we're supposed to vote on the bill. They pulled the bill. They didn't have enough votes to pass it themselves.
Hallelujah.
And so it collapsed. Thank God.
Thank God.
Or your coverage would be gone.
Thank God.
And so, that's what we're doing up there. That's what I'm committed to up there, is fighting for you and making sure that you continue to get the coverage that you need and that you deserve. And so we dodged a bullet. And in large measure, I have to give credit across the aisle to Senator John McCain. Long answer, I'm sorry, but it was important.
Okay, so the person on deck, the last 4 digits are 8354. 8354. If you could raise your hand, if that's your ticket. Going once. Going twice. Okay, so now on deck, we will have the last 4 digits are 8358. Over there. Perfect, thank you.
Good morning, Mr. President, and all the participants. My main question is regarding the fairness of high-skill immigration system currently in the immigration process. I wish all know
Could you speak a little bit more into the microphone? Sorry.
yeah. My main question is regarding the fairness of high-skill immigration system. Currently, we are facing that GC backlog, green card backlog, basically for the who born in India. Means I, Vishal Modi, I'm here in the United States from last 10 years. I did my master's in United States. I'm here is that in Alice County from last five and a half years. My employer processed my green card, but my green card is right now stuck because of the backlog for that green card current process. I'm here at the legal, tax-paying, and high-skill immigrant waiting for my green card for last 5 to 7 years. And as per current immigration green card process, and when I researched on that backlog and everything, I found that if I'll be receiving that green card up in next 40 to 70 years, which is very difficult for us, like we born in India, because this is only because we born in India. If I born in another country and came here to the United States, study and get process for the green card, I will get the green card in 1 to 2 years. And the current immigration system process provide the GC is depend on the country-based quota. So currently our worry is like that if in the next 40 to 70 years, if we lost one-time job, even though we lose the one job, we have to sell our all the properties, cars, and our all belongings, and we have to move back to the India within 30 days. And there is a main belongs to that our kids which are born in India and they come with us and who are born in the US and they are also US citizen, even though they are facing the same issue because we did not we are that they are dependent on us. So our for that we have to resolve this kind of issue. We have that one fairness high skill immigration bill as HR 392 and S 281 in the Senate. So would like to request are you co-sponsor or support this kind of extra strong bipartisan bill? One of my friends, he also would like to express this same issue with his hand.
Sure.
Hey, good afternoon, Congressman. Am I loud enough? Okay. Thanks, Mr. Okay. I took the microphone from Vishal because I wanted to essentially speak on the same agenda. So I'm here to spread awareness on the broken legal immigration system that we have today. Okay, to be noted, legal immigration system. And also to spread awareness on this proposed bill called 392? Okay, so there's a bill that has been proposed by one of the congressmen called 392, which kind of attempts to fix the problem. So what is the problem at hand that we have today? So I am in this country for like 8 years now, and I'm 37 now. So I landed in this country when I was 29. And with me, there were a bunch of other folks that also joined me. And there are people from Italy, there are people from Germany, there are people from our neighboring country called Bangladesh, Nepal, and all of them are now waiting to get their citizenship approved. While we are stuck still with the work immigration visa. And why is that so? That is because, as per the current immigration policy, we have a per capita country cap. Okay? So that kind of discriminates between which country.
First, thank you both for coming. And thank you very much for raising what is one of the most important issues facing our country, immigration. And I believe that we have a broken immigration system right now in America. And I think that comprehensive immigration reform is something that we need to work toward as quickly as possible. And there are many facets to it that need to be improved upon, like yours. Obviously, if it would take, I think you said over 100 years. 106. Yeah, that's, I'm not going to be here, and maybe you won't either. So I get the problem. But, you know, some of this stuff started a while ago. And the new administration, one of the first things they talked about was banning people from entire countries from coming here. I oppose that point of view. I understand we want to keep America safe, and I get that. But that doesn't mean, as a federal government, that you paint that broad a brush against everybody in a country or seven and say, you know, they're all bad. We don't do that in our criminal justice system here at home. We shouldn't do it in our policy toward other people around the world. And so it seems to me that if we can get to a place where we can start to finally address comprehensive immigration reform with an eye toward fundamental fairness, safety for America, doing what in fact is right. I mean, let me give you an example. My grandfather is an immigrant. And at the time he came, it was 1912. He was 14 years old. And my grandfather, his name's Adam, when he came here, he didn't have any money. He couldn't speak the language as well as you do. especially, and he didn't know anybody. But he believed that America, what he had heard about America, was that it was this wonderful country that allowed people, welcomed people in from around the world. And all you had to do was come here, work hard, live by the rules, and you could do well for yourself and for your family and create a better opportunity. It's the story of almost everybody in this room, if not you directly, as that gentleman. Somebody in your background, more likely than not, came here from somewhere else. And so, when he came here in 1912, as I say, he was 14, a few years later, war broke out. And so, my grandfather enlisted in the army to fight in World War I, fought in Belgium, and was honorably discharged. This is called common sense policy. And what should be part, well, it's the modern day dreamer, frankly. And because he was honorably discharged, he automatically got his U.S. citizenship. He was willing to die for his new country. And so, if we can get to a point again where we have that kind of appropriate, comprehensive immigration reform that is compassionate and understanding and caring and fair, we'll be better off. Because the people who want to come here just want a chance. Most of them. There are some exceptions. I remember 9/11, I get it, and I understand that we got to keep America safe first. That's very, very important to all of us, of course. So I'm for, I have to look at the whole bill. I haven't seen it yet, so I can't commit to co-sponsor it. But I can commit this to you, that my heart's with you. And that sentiment that you expressed, I care deeply about. And it's just a matter of fundamental fairness to me. So thank you for raising the issue, and thank you for being here this morning.
Okay, and our next member on deck, the last four are 8451. 8451, if you could raise your hand. They're in the back. Perfect, thank you.
Yes, Representative Crist. Hi, my name is Mark Simcoe. I'm a resident here of Clearwater. I believe that our current president is the greatest danger to the safety and security. That we've seen in quite some time, especially from an internal source, that every utterance, tweet-wise or personally, shows evidence of temperamental, emotional, and intellectual instability. You state that the safety of the country is our most important concern. I know as a member of a minority party, there may not be much you have in the way of initiative in pushing through declarations, resolutions, but Senator Corker at least has publicly stated his concerns about the fitness of this president, and I think that a drumbeat of increase in support is what we're going to need. Do you share that concern about his competence? And if so, when will you join your voice to that chorus?
You ought to be ashamed of yourself, buddy.
Thank you, Mark. I think it's important to understand that I voiced that sentiment last year on election day because of who I voted for. I did not vote for this president. And that's how we do it in a democracy. And we have the ability to speak out, which is also important. And I've done that. And I will continue to do it. I've also said this about the president. If he does something that I think is good for the country, I will support it. I don't care. But if he does something that I think is bad, which I just talked about at length, where the Muslim ban was one of the first things, I spoke out about it and said it's bad. I can't support it. So I do it all the time. And you're right, I'm in a minority party. And that is what it is. But I don't know if that's going to be the case for very long. And I want to give you some evidence of that, Mark, because I think it's important. I went to the president's inauguration out of respect, and because of how I was raised. And the next day, though, I flew home. And I went to an event in St. Petersburg called the Women's March. And that's Stephen in the back. Raise your hand, Stephen, please. He's our district director. He was gracious enough to pick me up at Tampa Airport. And we're driving over the Howard Franklin Bridge to come to St. Pete to attend the march, day after the inauguration. So I'm talking to Stephen, trying to get a sense of what this march is going to be like, how many people might be there. And he said, well, it could be 1,000, 2,000. That's a lot. Of course, we get there, and it's like 25,000 people. So even though I might be in the minority party today in Congress, I think that the election has made a difference to our country, significant difference to our country. Elections matter. And sometimes people don't always understand, I don't think, the gravity of the effect an election can have on our future, or maybe appreciate it. You know, we're so blessed in this country. We have so much to be grateful for. But I think that after the election, people who may not have been happy with the outcome certainly were not, they were awakened, let me put it that way. And so I think that there's going to be great participation in the 2018 election. I'm confident of it. And I think it will not just be somebody voicing objection, but somebody in the majority who might be able to get resolutions passed that speak to that cause. So thank you for raising it very much.
Speaking out is not something to be ashamed of. We have the last four are 8466. Okay, up front. Perfect. Thank you.
This gentleman decided to pass the torch, so we'll go ahead.
So you'll be right up, 8466, and then our on deck will now be 8464 over there. Perfect.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Hi, Charlie. My name is William Rogers, and I want to thank you for being here today.
Thank you for being here.
As I told you, we caught you down at the University of Florida a couple of months ago. I want to start off by saying I am a proud gay man, 73 years old. I don't know of a time in my life when I wasn't gay. I came up in that period of time when you dared not be gay. We have fought decade after decade for our equal rights. When the Supreme Court blessed us in 2015, after 26 years of being together, my husband and I were able to get married in New York City. It's been a long struggle for all of us in the LGBT community. We take a step forward and we fall back a mile. It's been like that. But today, I am outraged at the president who now wants and is going to sign that order to ban transgender people from our military. I don't know what we can do. I don't know, is it possible that the military can defy a presidential order? If they can, if they have the courage, then by God, they should. My question, Charlie, I guess, is what can you do? What can all of us do together to stop this insanity?
Thank you. Conjures up many thoughts, but number one, congratulations on your marriage.
We just had our anniversary 2 days ago.
Sorry it took so long for the country to come around, but at least we got it.
We were engaged for 26 years.
That's all. Patience is a virtue. Yeah, I think it's awful too. William.
And love conquers all.
Say again.
Love conquers all.
Love does conquer all. You're absolutely right. I did notice that, and I believe it was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, or it may have been one of the actual secretaries of one of the different military, that said, and I'm paraphrasing, a tweet doesn't make an order. And so I don't know that that policy has yet gone in effect by our military. We can check it when we get home, or you can check it if you have your iPhone on. Having said that, though, to me, it's discrimination.
Yes.
I don't know what else to call it. And it's one of the big problems I have with the administration. You know, when you make blanket statements like that,
Amen.
then, I mean, how else can you look at it? So it breaks my heart, number one. What can I do? I can voice that opinion. I have, and will continue to. And number three, we can vote. And, you know, we are of the people, by the people, for the people. And so the power is within you. It's great to be a member of Congress. It was great to be your governor, attorney general, what have you. But the highest office in this land is the one we all hold. It's called citizen. And thank God our founding fathers set it up that way, William, because it's only citizen, all of you, all of us, on any given election day, who can change who is president, or congressman, or governor, or mayor. And so we all have that power within us. And the next election is not that far away. You know, it's about, I don't know, 16 months or so? November of 2018. Time marches on pretty fast. And so my challenge to all of us is do what you're already doing. I'm preaching to the choir. You wouldn't be here if you cared as much as you do. I mean, you obviously care a great deal, or you wouldn't take it of your time to be here today, this morning. But you can influence your friends and encourage them to vote, no matter who they're going to vote for. But if they don't like the way things are now, then there's a real, clear, and almost present way to express yourself and make a difference. And speaking out in the interim, and voting on election day. There you go.
Okay, so our on-deck question, the last four are 8352. 8352, if you could raise your hand. Is that you in the back? Okay, perfect, thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. My name's Sadie.
It's good afternoon now, sorry.
I represent the group Interfaith Alliance for Peace in the Holy Land. And we are requesting that you reconsider your support and co-sponsor of Bill H.R. 1697. This bill is also known or referred to as the anti-BDS bill, or Boycott, Divestment, Sanctions bill. Omar Barghouti recently received the Gandhi Peace Award from Yale University for his work as co-founder of the BDS campaign. This is a non-violent means of resistance against the occupation and human rights abuses afflicted on the Palestinians by the State of Israel. BDS calls for an end to the occupation, the longest ever, an end to the systematic racial discrimination, which meets the UN definition of apartheid, and the right of return for Palestinian refugees. This AIPAC sponsored bill, AIPAC being American-Israeli Public Affairs Committee, a very strong lobby in Washington, criminalizes boycotts of Israel, prohibiting anyone doing business in the U.S. from taking part in boycotting against Israel or against the illegal Israeli settlements in the West Bank and East Jerusalem. It can be punishable by a fine up to $1 million or potential maximum of 20 years in prison. This bill is clearly reminiscent of the McCarthy era. We hope you will follow your colleagues, Senator Elizabeth Warren, who stated, "This bill outlaws free speech activity and violates our basic constitutional rights." And also Kristen Gillibrand, who was a co-sponsor, who withdrew after speaking with the ACLU objections of negating free speech, and they both removed their sponsorship from the Senate bill. As an American, this bill is contrary to our rights and values, and I ask, what you do to the least of my brother, you do to me.
I'll take it with you. Thank you. Yes, I did. But you asked me to review it. Said I will. Okay. Pardon me?
Why would you support it?
Because I believe in it, but I'm willing to keep an open mind.
So our on deck will be last four numbers, 8472. 8472, okay, right there, thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
My name is Will. Wow.
It's okay, Will. Don't be nervous.
Thank you so much for being here. You represent us here in Florida. I'm not really from here though. I am from Syria. I've been here for almost 7 years now. And I really love this country, actually.
Thank you.
I think we're different probably up here, but we're all the same here. We all have the same heart and same souls, you know. I don't really have a big question for you, but I think a lot of people are caring for so many other people that do really need that help. Especially, I met some people that were sending help to Africa, and they live here. They don't really have to do that, but they do it because they feel other people in their hearts. And I think that's great. And thanks for everybody that do help anybody in a different country or your neighbor.
Thank you very much.
And then our on deck number is 8384.
Oh.
No? No one?
No, but
Is it
go
you?
ahead, pull enough one. I'm close. I'm
Okay,
fine.
8384, raise your hand if you're still here. Let's try another one then. 8375. 8375. Okay, you go ahead with your question, I'll find some.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Real quick question is...
What's your name, sir?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm Robert. I
Robert.
live in Clearwater. My question is about the removal of our monuments throughout this country. And I'm not just talking about Confederate the monuments, it's all of them. My question is, do you support any federal action through Congress, or should it stay within our local communities where we would vote on these things in our local communities about the removal or changing of names, buildings, and so on?
I support the removal. I think it doesn't really matter to me that much which jurisdiction does it, so long as it happens. So my presumption would be if it's on federal property, then it's appropriate for federal authorities to do it. If it's in a municipality like Clearwater, for the city officials to do it. If it's in unincorporated parts of a county, then probably a county commission should do it. But thank you. It's been amazing how this has been treated in our country. And what happened in Charlottesville is deplorable.
Yes.
And deadly, sadly. And, that kind of behavior is unconscionable, should never be condoned, and I don't think most Americans, thankfully, do not condone it. They do not condone neo-Nazis or white supremacists or the KKK, and we should not. So I am grateful that so many people are speaking out so strongly on this issue, and I appreciate your question. Thank you.
So our next up, the numbers are 8473. The last four are 84, okay. And then we'll go ahead and do the on deck one, 8372. 8372, right behind you, perfect.
Good morning. Good afternoon.
Congressman
Yes.
James Irwin.
Mr. Erling, good to see you again.
Yeah, I'm still trying to collect the Social Security issue for 2.5 years. This is ridiculous that I'm going through. Their own doctor said I was disabled in November and went before the judge last week, and he still wasn't ready to have a rehearing. That on August 8th that he set up on April 26th. And then last week I went down to try to talk to a supervisor at the Social Security office, and the rent-a-cop wanted to throw me out of the building. This is ridiculous that I'm going through this. I'm a vet, and I'm giving them 1,200 pages of medical records, and in July, this judge saying, oh, he's found some doctor in Alabama who claimed I could handle 100 pounds for 6 hours straight, who never even examined me, which is contrary to the case law. We found that they're supposed to follow my doctor's diagnosis.
Thank you, Mr. Early. We have been working with Mr. Early for quite some time, and Stephen just told me that the decision is supposed to come down in 8 days. Any day now. So hopefully that will in fact happen, and we'll keep working with you.
Because as of yesterday's mail, nothing came.
Right. Well, maybe it's today.
No, what I'm saying is I tried to get an answer last week from the office at 8th and Central, and the rent-a-cop, when I asked to talk to a supervisor to see the judge wasn't ready on the hearing on August 8th to find out where we stood, and they basically wanted to throw me out of that building.
I understand.
This is not, when I asked to talk to a supervisor to find out where we stood on this judge's file. Back in November, the decision was ready on November 20th, and he didn't mail it till Pearl Harbor Day. That's an insult. It takes 3 weeks to get a decision out by our government and his retirement pay from his Marine Corps, that is ridiculous.
Right.
And now we have 8372, which is right there. And on deck, our last four, we have 8447 over there. Perfect. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for being here, and I thank you for our bracelet. But you know, I also remember that this means that he who has the gold makes the rules. And I worry about that, you know, for our country.
That's good.
We've given over $1 billion to Israel over the past, 30 years. And I think that we should have a voice there as to what's happening. I was very upset to read in the paper, well, actually heard it on the news this morning, that the Israeli military went in and just demolished a school that had just been built by the EU for the children of Bethlehem. It's right outside. About 2 years ago, I went to Bethlehem and spoke with the people there. I went to Bethlehem University and listened to that wonderful program where it's a Christian university, but there's about 70% of the students are also Muslim, and they're living together, they're working together, they're studying together, and it's a wonderful example of what can happen. To see a school like this just demolished, we must have a voice in this, and I hope that your voice will be heard opposing this type of activities that are going on.
Thank you, Carol. I'm a great advocate for education.
Yeah.
And, wherever it is in the world, it's extremely important. And to hear about a school that was torn down is more than saddening to me. In fact, I served as your education commissioner. And my father was on the school board here in Pinellas County. And I am a proud product of the public school system in Pinellas County. We need to move forward in education, not backward.
So our on deck, go ahead with 8447, and our on deck is 8445. 8445 in the middle there. Thank you.
Oh, are they shaking it now? Good, maybe.
I'm a disabled vet and veteran, and I've been waiting for quite a long time for concurrent pay, which has been an issue that Congress has been talking over since 2004. They said if we waited our 10 years till 2014, everyone would get concurrent pay. I retired in 1985, and they took my VA compensation out of my military retirement. When I went in, I was making $97 a month as a private during the Vietnam War. I'm now making $65.75 from my military retirement of 13 and a half years. What is your stand, and do you support, when will the 2014 decision to give everyone concurrent pay? It's already 2017 and I still don't have it. What is your position, and what can you do to get it finally for the veterans that need it?
What is your name, sir?
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Fred.
Fred. Well, Fred, I think you should have had it in 2014. It's an issue of fairness. I mean, you were willing to fight for our country, and you did so. In Vietnam, I think you said. Thank you, sir. It wasn't so pretty when you and many of your fellow combatants came home to America, so thank you now. Yes, Fred, please go ahead.
I did not have to go to Vietnam.
Okay.
But at the time I went in, I was told it took 10 soldiers out of the field to keep one soldier in the field.
Yes, sir.
So we were just as important back then.
We all agree.
What most people don't understand is concurrent pay. My Army pay is my service time, the years of service that I served. My VA compensation is the disability I got while I was serving. And my 70% to me is just as important than the 100% that you automatically get if you're 100% disabled.
Yes, sir, I'm with you. I support you. And the best way that I can show that support is to vote for legislation that provides that funding to you. And I will do that, and I've already done it. I did it on a piece of legislation that we voted on right before the August recess as it related to the entire military, including veterans, and I will keep doing it. And I will remember this moment, Fred. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And right now we have 8445, I think was in the middle and back there. And then on deck, we have 7933. 7933. Oh, okay.
Yes, my name is Maurice. I'm having a serious problem, and that problem is with both political parties, not just one. I have been voting as a Democrat for a long time, but I became a little bit on the independent side because I've been going back and forth based on issues. I'm finding I'm having a problem with the Democratic Party, and we're in the
Because also we insure a lower percentage of our population. So while the ACA was great, it brought in 20 million more people into the insurance system. But 29 million people are still uninsured. And of those 20 million and more that do have insurance, we all know that oftentimes insurance is inadequate. That's why half of the bankruptcies in this country are related to healthcare expenses. And that includes people with insurance. So,
It includes people what?
with insurance, with
Thank you.
healthcare insurance. So, let's also talk about our outcomes. They're not great either. So, in the United States, we have the 4th highest rate of infant mortality of all the developed nations. We also have the 2nd highest rate of unmanaged asthma. 45,000 people die every year because they don't have coverage. So my question is about HR 676. That's John Conyers' bill. That is to introduce single payer into our system. Financial barrier that presents to so many Americans. Will you sign HR 676?
I don't know. I have to look at it first, to be fair. But I'm happy to look at it and review it, since you've asked. And I know Mr. Conyers very well, and have a great deal of respect for him. The healthcare problem is significant. It is way too expensive. And I think there are many different ways to address it. Among them, for the United States, for Medicare, we don't negotiate the prices of pharmaceutical drugs, which is ridiculous. I mean, you know how much you have to pay for your pharmaceuticals. It's through the roof. And it's why so many people try to get their pharmaceuticals from Canada, for example. So at a minimum, we ought to be doing that. But there are other ways to keep the cost down. One of the things I think is very important is that we were able to keep alive the Affordable Care Act, which you're right, did expand coverage to a lot of people. And I am very, very glad we're able to do that. But there's more to be done. You know, we can have an option for people to opt into coverage, which is an idea that is getting traction. You're talking about a mandate, I think, and that I believe is put in that bill, but I'll check it to be sure. But I think that, you know, we have a lot of people that are already on a mandated program, in essence. Medicaid, Medicare. There's a lot of people that are benefiting from those, and justifiably so. So I think we're moving in that direction. But it may be that, you know, choice, you know, personal option of choice initially will help us in a transition to a better system that creates more affordability greater access and better health care coverage that we all deserve. So thank you. And thank you for being a nurse.